Hello, everybody. Welcome to WD Carousel of Podcast. My name's Crystal.
And I'm Ian.
And today we are going to do a little bit of a step back, a little bit of history, Distory. I tried to go with it. I think we've used it in the past. It just felt awkward now. But we are going to be covering the very first Disney television program. I'm going to call it a program. I almost called it a special, but it's more than that. So we are going to be covering the Disneyland show.
Yeah. Which is kind of the beginning of a series of the kind of wonderful world of Disney kind of stuff. That was kind of a pioneering deal, because I forgot how early it was, and then I realized it was regarding the beginning of Disneyland, and then I was like, oh right, so it has to be
yes
in the early 50s.
Yes. So clarification, at this point in time, TV was just starting to come out, and this was a big battle royale between the television shows and networks versus the motion picture industry that have already paid their dues and had to work from silent film all the way up to sound to, live action and animation, and they've established themselves, and how dare this little small box come in their way and try and take their profits.
Right. And this is still like, it's changing a little bit now, but like this is still an argument, like all the way through film school. Like we had two separate departments for film and TV. It was like, why?
Yeah, you would know about that better than I would, because you actually studied it.
Yeah, it was a little bit weird. I mean, I did some stuff with the TV people too, but there's definitely like an actual divide for reasons that I don't fully understand, except for what you just said, like being kind of like film is old school, motion picture is the old cinematic auteur kind of thing, and then TV is kind of like the young scrappy guys. I don't really get it, but here we are. That's just
and that's the same thing that you see with actors and stuff. If you see an actor on the big screen and then you see them drop into television, it's like, oh, did you get demoted? I mean, I I don't know why that's there and why that is impressed into my mindset, but it is. And so I don't know.
Yeah.
But of course, if they go the other way, so like Johnny Depp going from like 21 Jump Street all the way up to big cinema, you're like, oh, he made it. Not to bring up Johnny Depp, but he's the first name that popped in my head. So we are talking about the early years of television.
Yes.
And Walt actually was one of the first people that did not see the advent of television as a negative thing in the motion picture world. In fact, he thought that this was going to be the future. It was the wave of the future. To quote, it says, it was the way of going direct to the public by passing the middleman to the people who can sit there and be the judge. So instead of having, the panels and everything, is this good enough for the audience? Is this good enough for the audience? They were able to just send it off to the consumer, which I thought was a very smart way of looking at it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's instead of seeing it as it's kind of how a lot of creators have now seen streaming, where it's like that next level again, where it's like you and I can produce content that can even bypass TV. Like we can go right to you again. Like it's the same thing. And so Walt was kind of ahead of the game and seeing like, wait a second, this is just another way to get to our people. And like, why would we turn that down? And
Walt's always been really good about innovation and having his eye on the future and knowing what's coming up next and really where to latch onto. And so television was the best format for that. In fact, they did a 1950s Christmas special on 1950, not 1950s. It was just a singular Christmas special that was done on NBC that they did with a ventriloquist and a couple other well-known at the time actors that I have no idea what their names are. I just remember that there was a ventriloquist.
That'll stick out. Yeah.
And they did some, animated short specials that had already been pre-existing. But what they had found was a lot of the industry just wanted to have the existing content that had already been in theaters. So shorts, Mickey shorts. You want to see the movies that made them popular. Obviously, Snow White, Pinocchio,
Sure,
Dumbo, all
sure.
of those guys, and they just wanted what was already existing. And I know that Walt, again, does not always want to stick with what is comfortable and wanted
Right.
to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And at that
Yeah,
time, he also
absolutely.
had another concept that he was working on.
Right. Which it may be the title may have given it away, or we may have given it away already.
I mean, I already said the name of the show,
The
so
name
it
of the
kind of
show.
makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So as you know, Walt starts working on Disneyland Park. I mean, they're just a team. I mean, they're a film studio. They've done good work, but like, you need a lot of capital to do something like Disneyland. Like you look at the level
And
of
it's
everything
never
they're
happened
doing.
before. Like this
Right,
theme
it's-
park idea did not exist.
Right. So there wasn't enough money. Like there was no way for
No,
like
the banks weren't going to be like, oh, you want to
No.
make little kids rides? No, all of
No.
those amusement parks right now are dirty and skeezy, and I'm not going to give you any
Right.
money for it.
right.
And so
right.
Walt's like, well, this is an idea that I am passionate about, and we're going to do it, so find me the money.
Right.
And
So
Roy, like
he-
normal, did.
Yeah. So the whole concept then would be Roy says, well, why not just start a Patreon? I'm sorry, but we are on Patreon. Sorry.
Oh, that'd be a lot of donations for the Patreon to be
Oh,
able to open a
man.
theme park. Oh, God.
Oh. Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
Roy-
anyway.
Roy did reach out to all the different television companies at the time, NBC, CBS, and a little small, almost dwindling company called ABC. And they were turned away by all of the big guys, but ABC was like, okay,
Yeah.
Disney's popular and maybe we can take advantage of that. And
Right.
Walt actually says that ABC needed the shows so badly that they bought the amusement park. They provided investing into the park as well as an open line of
Wow.
credit for Walt to be able to pull off
Holy crap.
extra money off of just
where do they
for
get the money?
providing a 1-hour show every week to
I mean,
the audience.
It makes sense though to a certain degree, because you need to, you know, like we're talking about TV, like you're bringing people in, you're making money off of the ad time. If you have no viewership, then there's no point, and no one wants to put any ads out there. So if they can get a ringer like Walt Disney, which at the time would have been pretty crazy, then like it definitely would be a good deal for them.
Mm-hmm. But again, they were trying to force the existing content only, and Walt was like,
Oh,
no, I got some ideas. Not only do I want to show off this Disneyland that we're going to be opening, I have some new ideas for shows and that sort of thing. So
Mhm.
Walt kind of changed the direction of
right. Because they were
television
just saying
variety
like,
shows.
sure, because they were just saying, we just want you to put some Mickey Mouse on our channel.
Mm-hmm. We
Interesting.
want you to show us Snow White because, you know,
Right.
that made so much money and it's so popular that we think it's going
Right.
to bring viewership. And Walt's like,
Right.
I got better.
Right. Right.
And they let him do it, which is awesome. So they do the Disneyland show and they actually break it down every week to correspond with one of the lands that you can find in Disneyland, aka Old Magic Kingdom. So you might hear it referred to as both ways.
Yeah.
So they have the Frontierland show, they have the Adventureland show, the Fantasyland shows, and the Tomorrowland shows.
Yep.
Frontierland focused a lot on Davy Crockett and Westerns, and this is why
Right.
Davy Crockett and Westerns became a huge thing
in the 50s.
in the 50s. Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit further down, if you notice in my notes, it says that they made millions off of merch.
Yes, they
as,
did.
As well
Very
as...
problematic merch.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays it's not quite...
That would not have flown today.
No, not when you're playing cowboys and...
He's an Indians.
Yep.
Yeah.
But the Ballad of Davy Crockett, which is the Davy Crockett, king
Yeah.
of the wild frontier, that actually hit record sales for the year.
Oh my
like,
God.
it was a record-selling
huge.
song.
Yeah. Well, and that's classic to Walt and his like romanticizing American history.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, one of the things that the company and Walt himself gets flack for a lot is cleaning up and romanticizing American history, which isn't always clean and pretty. But on the other hand, like, he was a master at it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was watching the very first episode of the Tomorrowland, or not Tomorrowland, the Disneyland show. It's called Disneyland Story. And they show the new actor that is going to be portraying, Davy Crockett on the show. And you can totally tell that he is the stereotypical 1950s Western cowboy. So he is in his semi-clean clothes with the fringe on the arm, you can tell that he bathed before he came, but they like put a little bit of dirt on him just to make him look a little red. But his teeth were still pearly white, his hair was perfectly coiffed, and I'm like, oh goodness, this is King of the Wild Frontier right here. But that was a hugely popular segment on the show, and it spawned off into its own movie franchise through Disney that they came out with later for live action and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Absolutely.
The Adventureland, I don't know where that accent came from. The Adventureland.
Dinosaurs. Sorry. Wrong IP. I'm so sorry.
We're ignoring it. Was actually focusing on things like nature documentaries. There was like they would do 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea sort of discovery things.
Would the 20,000 Leagues stuff be more like based around the Jules Verne stuff entirely, or would they kind of use it as a frame for? Well,
they had the movie
documentary.
They did a live action movie.
It was the movie.
20,000. So they aired that. They did other documentaries. I'll get into a little bit later, but in the first show they talked about how they were going to. I guess I might well talk about it right now. What they were going to be covering for every single themed week. So if you go to Adventureland, and then they spoke with the head guy who was doing all the research for the Adventureland content, and he was like, we have film crews everywhere across the globe, and this one is sitting there with penguins, and the penguins are more interested in him than documenting, and then we gave him a shaving mirror and destroyed it and whatever. And then they're like, and here's the bullpen in Spain, and I texted Ian while I was watching this, and and they're like, and little does everybody know that the bulls are having just as much fun as the gauchos. And I'm like, okay,
are they?
Okay, I see those spears sticking out their backs, and yes, this shows being shown in black and white, but there's a shimmer of blood hanging off of them. So for you to be like, little do you know, they're having just as much fun, is like,
that's rough. At the time, sugarcoating something like that made sense. Now it's like that. No one's getting fooled by that.
Nope. Fantasyland focused on the classic characters, fairy tales. That was also a lot of the behind the scenes documentary stuff. So
for animation and stuff.
Well, and even like Mary Blair, when you see the dolls from Small World and that sort of thing that we see video clips of that we're familiar with.
Okay.
That's where they were, focused on when they were doing the who's going to get under what section. So they went under the Fantasyland and breaking down how they do that kind of thing. And then Tomorrowland was supposed to be this science factualism. That they really didn't know what they were going to do, which actually will find when we finally get around to doing Disneyland, the park specific episode, that they still really didn't know what they were going to do with Tomorrowland. So it was the least touch part of the park, and it was the honestly least touch part of the show too. So the Tomorrowland section, they only had in the 4-season run of the Disneyland show, they only had 6 episodes total for Tomorrowland.
Fun fact about Tomorrowland, because this was actually the one of the things that I saw a little bit in detail of in regards to this series. They brought in, it was because they want to talk about space. Like that was like one of the things that Walt was super into.
It was a huge thing for Walt.
It was a huge thing. And, they were so close. Like, you think about it, like it was going to be about probably 15 years and they were going to put somebody on the moon. So we were getting close to this. And the person that they used, and I forgot the guy's name, the scientist who was doing all this work in the US that they were interviewing, built the V2 rockets for Nazi Germany. So there's some fascinating stuff in there. It's a little bit different.
But so yeah, they only had 6 episodes total. That's like less than 2 a season. I mean,
That's funny.
When you're talking about, it took over 20 weeks of episodes before they had their very first Tomorrowland. They keep pushing it off. They're like, oh, we got this.
Scrambling.
We got this. Let's just, okay, we're 20 weeks into this project. We're 5 months into this, and we haven't even talked about one area that is part of the park. So we should probably build some some content. And so they were talking about things like, in the intro show, they were like, we're going to talk about atomic space stations, we're going to talk about like new spacesuits, which were like these, for the Pokemon nerds out there, look like a Metapod. So it literally kind of had this diamond shape, but it was, cylindrical.
Sure.
And they're like, and all the tools will be conveniently in there. So you're basically just in this little pod, and these mechanical arms like come out like little sticks with whatever tools you want on them. And I'm like, that is so nerdy. But whatever. Funny. I mean, this retro futurism that we're in right now, I think it's an amazing concept. But it's hilarious.
It's fascinating to look at that.
Or atomic powered rockets. Could you imagine having an atom explosion under your butt to be able to get you to outer space?
Just a not amazing thing to do.
But they're like, we're going to have all of these experts and all of this content. And they were focusing on, they ended up focusing on this Man to the Blank series. So they did Man to the Moon, Man to Mars, Man to Space. There's half of the episodes right there.
Right. Yeah, right. You just named them.
And there was only like one that wasn't space related.
Okay.
Which I think is really silly. But it is what it is. And Tomorrowland is still kind of floundering even to this day because, tomorrow's always just around the corner and you can never keep up with it. So
the line is, was it tomorrow always comes? So like, it's going to happen eventually, right?
Or is it tomorrow never comes because it always turns into today? I don't know. I don't remember it.
I don't know.
We're not paid to know that. Okay.
We're not paid to know that.
Another thing that was kind of neat about this that you will actually be able to talk to a little bit is that TVs at this time were only black and white.
Yes, they were.
But Walt insisted that every episode be filmed in color. Which
that's interesting. So I'm assuming they must have probably done it all in 16 millimeter, which would have been the not large format standard for the time. So if you were shooting a TV spot at the time, because back in the day, at this point in time, like your choices were to shoot something live, basically, or you had to shoot it on film because there was no such thing as videotape. You couldn't capture a video signal to a tape. They hadn't figured that out yet, or not logistically in a way that made sense. So basically, for all of that stuff, they had to shoot it on 16 millimeter film, and then they basically had a camera in frame sync with the projector, and they would just show a camera capturing the playback.
They would live stream the film that's being played, essentially.
Exactly. You could only live stream things, and you could only shoot things on film. That was how they had to do it. So they would just shoot stuff in color.
Because they were already showing color films at that point.
Right. So they just, shoot it in color and then shoot the color film being played back in black and white. But then you have these original color negatives, which is kind of cool for stuff.
It helps with reruns too, like when they did the 1960s Wonderful World of Color, which will be another episode in a couple weeks or a couple months. I don't remember our timeline, whatever. But it helped them be able to harken back to these original episodes because they were also conveniently in color. Yeah. So, like I said, the Disneyland show aired for 4 seasons.
Yep.
And it started 9 months before Disneyland actually opened. So actually not much longer after Disneyland broke ground. Because remember, the park took like a year to build.
Right.
So they were like, okay, so we got this park, now the funding, okay, 3 months to do that, and go.
and run. Go for it.
But
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, the first Disneyland episode, Disneyland Story, they do have available for purchase on a DVD set, but
okay.
I located on the YouTubies
interwebs. Yeah.
And they were able, they also still had some cartoon segments in there that obviously were not able to be aired for copyright reasons, but I got the gist of how they explained the layout of the show and a lot of what would not be very PC content today. So you could definitely tell this was in a different time with a different mindset.
Yes,
but
indeed.
With Walt being the host of the show every single week, it's almost like he became part of the American family. I mean, he was a well-known name. Uncle Walt is something that not only did he insist everybody that he worked with called him, but he basically, becoming part of the American family, became an honorary uncle to almost everybody that was growing up at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And the show itself ran for a long time. At the time, was it the longest running?
It still is.
Really? To this day?
Yep. It is the second longest running show on prime time, or second longest running prime time program on American television. Now, I know my Doctor Who nerds are going to be questioning that, but the only one that actually beats out for American television is like the Hallmark Hall of Fame or something that nobody else has heard of. So as far as content that people are familiar with, the Disneyland show is the number one. And it's because they combined all of the reiterations and retitling all to be the same show. Kind of like, again, Doctor Who reference. No, it's not a paid advertisement, but when they change actors for the doctors, and so you get a regeneration, it's the same thing with this. So we started out with the Disneyland show, and then through every amalgamation of it, it just progressed further and further up until the mid 2000s, and then it finally stopped.
Wow. Yeah, and it got a lot of awards in terms of Emmys. My clicker stopped working. So I can't actually. It's okay. You guys didn't notice the cut already. We're having troubles anyway, but it's fine.
Yeah, it's okay. Everybody understands technical issues, especially during COVID. But
we've had a very good track record.
Yes. The final thing that we will say, though, is that the very first season, the Disneyland show won an Emmy for the best variety series, which compared to all the other content that was on television at that time, variety shows were a huge thing. And so for Disneyland to come in and swoop that award from everybody is kind of huge,
kind of big, kind of a big deal. But yeah, so it's fascinating. We're going to talk more about these this anthology of shows that has existed for a long time, or existed for quite a while. But
yeah, I mean, we're not going to follow in order with them, because it'd be like, okay, so 2 seasons here, 5 seasons here, 3 seasons here. But this is the start of the Disney reputation on television, so we figured we would give it a go.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah,
very good.
This has been a WD Carousel of Podcast. My name's Crystal.
And I'm Ian.
And we hope you have a great, big, beautiful tomorrow. Bye, everyone.